Hello, everyone. Good evening and good wherever you are, wherever you're joining, the morning or evening or afternoon, any moment, either now on live or anytime you watch. Thank you very much for joining and paying your attention to the need to let our mind and time and thoughts to be soaked into the uh, learning about the precious qualities of the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. So the theme of this is very important, always, but especially important people who truly believe themselves that and have connection in finding refuge in the three jewels. So we are going to do the refuge prayer and the four immeasurables, which all of you are familiar with. Before we begin the teachings, today is the anniversary of Mahasi Virupa attaining sixth Bhumi, so it's a very auspicious day. The second last day of the Sagadava also. So it's a very auspicious in the calendar of Tibetan Buddhists in general, particularly those who follow the Sakya tradition. So bearing that in mind, that shows that we too can have an opportunity to increase our realization, just like the Virupa had. His experience as a practitioner was very, very mixed bag, but very turbulent, very, very tumultuous. But as he persevered there, he achieved not only first Bhumi, but second and third and fourth, all one after another in consecutive days. So he became the great sixth Bhumi dwelling Bodhisattva after he encountered Vajrayaratma and pursued his practice. So that's why today is a very auspicious night. So remembering his qualities, we will join our hands at the heart and we renew our refuge and generate the bodhicitta motivation in your intention to listen and stay still in the teaching, as well as someone like me who's giving teachings. All our intention, when we cultivate the right motivation, it has even greater benefit than merely doing things, something we do routine. But it's very important that each time we have an added realization of the preciousness of the refuge and rejoicing the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. So, and of course the teachings. So with this in mind, we'll do the chanting on the refuge prayer first and the bodhicitta with that. This four-line prayer is composed by Atisha. We call this Sangye Chotsokma in Tibetan. Everybody knows this by heart. So we are doing this in English, and we also know this by heart, Good one. Because we've been doing it regularly, so we also know it by heart. So that you should always have these prayers on our lips. Very good. And that's how slowly the teachings become established, because people know some prayers by heart, and then they're much easier to reflect on them because you don't need a text before you. You can contemplate the meanings and those even much more so when you know the prayers by heart and know the meanings. So it's a great opportunity to rejoice and express your appreciation and gratitude. You can really, the whole eyes and your gaze of your eyes will change once you are so present in acknowledging the Dharma and its precious, how sacred and how valuable it is. And you could be in a, almost like being in the presence of the Buddha, if the Buddha were to be present, what would your expression of that be? Physical language, verbal recitation. So every time we do the prayers, we should actually bring all those presence, bring all this complete sense of awareness, and refuge, and joy, and gratitude, and thankfulness, and just beyond words. Yeah. But the refuge prayers are just least thing we can say. But every cell and tissue of your body, mind, when you think of the qualities of the triple gem and say that blessing can completely change many things on a cellular level in your mind and body and spirit. So with this understanding, we need to be very present when we do the prayers and chanting, and also when you're listening to the teachings. It's happening at the same time, So you should feel the presence of the Buddha always on your crown or in front of you, and then through the medium of reading or listening to teachings, you are actually receiving the blessings, the positive energy of the teachings, and so that's why there's enormous merit in listening. And that's why we shouldn't do it just for ourselves or this evening or just for this body or me, but for the sake of all sentient beings, for the sake of all future, for the sake of the mind stream. It will help me many places how to form a better mental formation than those habitually available at my disposal. So with this in mind, when we are very present, you couldn't believe that how much present you are. Awareness and the cupness of your intention can greatly boost the incredible outcome. So with this reminder, we'll do the prayers. Oyenda Buddha Dharma Asanga Atere Yete Enlightenment by virtue Ajendala Aishare Udavatu Endabu Dadarama Asanga Atere Yete Enlightenment by virtue Ajendala Aishare Udavatu Endabu Dadama Asanga Atere Yete Enlightenment by virtue Ajendala Aishare Udavatu Endabu Dadama Asanga Atere Yete Enlightenment by virtue Ajendala Aishare Udavatu. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion of those near and far. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power from happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, aversion of those near and far. May all beings have happiness, and the cause of happiness may they be free from suffering, and the cause of suffering Medeneva from the happiness that no suffering mededwave equanimity pray from attachment and aversion to those near and far. According to the intelligence and predisposition of it, where the yet and the dharma agrelo and come goals. So continue our theme of the qualities of the three jewels. Tonight we're going to focus on the specific qualities of the gem of the Dharma. But we will look at the various topics of Dharma that actually features in your daily practice. For instance, if you do, like we have refuge, and then generation bodhicitta. Before you do the refuge generation bodhicitta, you develop the what we call four turning away your mind. So which means you reflect on the four common foundations. So we will look at each of them and what are the qualities of Dharma. For instance, firstly, the meditating on the shortcomings of samsara. So quality of Dharma teaches that that the samsara is to which most people are submerged and very much into samsara, without knowing that samsara is a suffering and a cause of suffering. So that firstly, it says you should develop the meditation on the renunciation from the shortcoming of samsara. So let's look at the qualities of the Dharma that talks about that renunciation of samsara. It's not so much renouncing samsara, but renouncing the cause of samsara, that is greed, hatred, and desire, and ignorance, and all other affliction that stems from one's attachment to things, the world, and people, or possessions, or things. And the teaching says you should meditate on the shortcomings of these things rather than the merit and benefit of these things. So now if you really understand the quality of Dharma's teaching on renunciation, then what is the quality of the precious Dharma? It enables you to have reduction of your attachment to things. It doesn't mean you are completely over them, and you no longer need them or you don't desire them, but your attachment towards things when you don't have or when you lose them, and those things are much more short-lived. So you don't get upset very long. Even you get upset, but unlike days or weeks before, you may be brooding over the subjects for many days, weeks, still not recovering from. But once those who have realized the shortcomings of samsara, then they actually know the Dharma's quality of the teaching of renunciation is so true that they're starting to develop, reduce the duration of the attachment, duration of the anger, duration of the or the level of their anger, or the level of their sadness and hurt and blaming, somewhat has been a little bit planed, a little bit sort of lightened up. And so if you notice that, that's the precious quality of Dharma gem, because you are realizing the trueness of how true the teaching of renunciation is, and shortcomings of samsara are. Because of the shortcomings of samsara, you are not doing as much as samsaric, as possible. You are not doing much samsaric. You are doing less samsara, so to speak, doing less samsara, and because of that, you have the freedom of suffering because you're not doing the cause of suffering, and know the result of suffering, which is samsara. So, because cause is the second noble truth, and result is the first noble truth, because you're doing less and less of them, therefore your renunciation of samsara and the shortcomings are forthcoming, you know. Yeah, actually, that you wouldn't believe how many people have self-assessed themselves over the years, what they used to be, and now after having refuge in the Dharma, they actually are much better in terms of moving away from those samsara doing mentalities. So that's to the qualities of teaching on renunciation, shortcomings of samsara. Second is the realization and appreciation of precious human rebirth. So if you understand that as the Dharma teachings, then how much you are actually accepting and contented with the way and things your life is or has, in comparison, making really positive comparison with everything. How many times your life is much, much better than any other life that you may have or aspired or envied other people's life. But actually your life is many times better because you have Dharma. And therefore you have a lot more joy and appreciation and gratitude instead of discontentment. And maybe you haven't. Maybe you haven't got the qualities of Dharma of realizing preciousness, human rebirth. Because of that, you're so depressed and angry at your life. That's exactly. So now we need to develop the qualities of Dharma, which is realizing how true the Dharma teaching is about concerning the nature of the precious human rebirth, how difficult it is to find, how once found how meaningful it can be, and so on. Once you start realizing preciousness of your human rebirth, then there's a lot of joy and contentment. Therefore, you don't do discontentment. You don't do samsara of craving as much, and let alone grasping. You rather rejoice the precious human rebirth. Not only you rejoice the precious human rebirth causally created by a good amount of merit from past lifetimes, and as a result of that, you also same time, this very precious human life, at the same time, you are actually able to meditate on the third common foundation. That is the impermanence of all things. So even you have a precious human rebirth, but this will not last long. These are always ticking off like clock. It's so your precious human life is only if you have this body and tenancy in this body. How long is your tenancy agreement? Nobody knows the tenancy agreement. So we do not know. So shorter the period of your tenancy is, the more precious it becomes. And it is getting shorter every day, so therefore you got to utilize this vehicle before it becomes completely useless. So that's why the more you understand that how true the Dharma is, more you have a greater contentment and appreciation of your life, and particularly your refuge in the Triple Gem, as we were mentioning. And then you say, oh, as a result of Dharma, I don't do as much as ill will as I do. I don't do self-loathing as much as I used to do before I had Dharma. I don't do as much as sadness as I used to do, because I have precious human rebirth. And so you have made your sorrow, your suffering impermanent. Not only you think all things impermanent, but you actually are making changes in your own thoughts and behaviors and attitude towards your own life. As a result of that, you have not only your life is more precious, but your mother, your father, everyone in your life is much more appreciable than you previously have cared to think about them. which we really have, will enable you to see them with a little bit more respect and kindness and understanding than you previously thought. And therefore, it's not just your precious human rebirth, not only the Dharma is so precious that your life is more precious, but everyone else in your life's contribution to your life is even more precious than you previously have learned to assess them. So because of that, you can see the shortcomings of samsara is incredible teaching. Precious realization of precious human rebirth is Dharma teachings, and then law of impermanence. Because things are impermanent, you are able to let go. Even pleasant things that you no longer have. Maybe you used to have very good health, and now you are entering into the gray area. Not only the body, the hair is growing gray, but your skins are grayer and grayer, and your memories are even more grayer. Your ability to get up quickly is even more grayer. So when you're actually seeing these aging processes of your body and your mind, your skill, your abilities, and your interests, and all of these things that you can see, now we are definitely on a different scale of our life. So then you are actually developing less and less attachment to these corporal body aggregates, and you're much more enthused to cultivate the renunciation of attachment to the body and health, and therefore you are much more making provision and preparation for what is inevitable, the death. So instead of fearful of your death, you actually are more ready to. You're almost making a deliberate attempt to be ready to accept the death whenever it's going to come, because you don't. Death doesn't come with this few steps before you die. You don't have to be ill. You don't have to be old. You don't have to be sick. You just have to be born. So we have complete criteria to die. We are completely fit to die any time. And there is no requirement. there's hardly any box you need to tick before you die. You can basically die any time. So because of that, we do not despise death or changes, but we actually it enables us, gives us the power and quality to let go, and don't plan to live long, because you will not. And don't plan to think you have many years, because you don't. Don't try to put off good things to do, because you won't have time to them and do them in the future. And therefore prioritize those things you really want to do. This is going to enable you to what we call realize how true the teaching is about law of impermanence. And when you see the preciousness of the Dharma, particularly teaching how true the teaching of law of impermanence is, you have a greater ability to let go things and not crave and desire and want something, and then become very easily frustrated when you don't get it. You don't have any disappointment as you previously used to have. Even if you didn't get something, even if you lost something, you don't have the same degree of heartache and disappointment. Why? Because you know the impermanence of all things is not a fault of us. It's not the thing changing that is suffering, but our attachment to it becomes suffering. Because you have the quality of Dharma that teaches us to renounce attachment to permanence, not that there is permanence to get attached to, by the way. If there is thing called permanence, you can hold on to it, then you can hold it. But there's nothing to hold on to, neither to your body, nor to your possessions, nor to your relationship, nor to your health, nor to where you used to live, nor to what you used to do. You couldn't hold on to anything. Because of that, you actually realize how true it is. So the attachment is doing samsara. So because you do not become so attached to it, you have the quality of not suffering nearly as ordinary other sentient beings are. Maybe you are losing your skill, your fitness, your dependent, your independence, or whatever. But you don't suffer as much as the other people who are in the same boat as you are, because you have the Dharma, because you know that things are impermanent, and therefore you are able to accept them in dignity and grace. There's a lot of dignity in accepting loss, accepting death, accepting sickness, accepting parting. That there isn't some kind of a vulnerability that we have to suffer. Now I lost this. Oh, you suffer loss. People usually say suffering loss. It's almost like a loss isn't necessarily suffering, cause of suffering. But people who have the quality of Dharma, non-attachment, they don't know. They say, oh, no, I don't suffer loss anymore. I experience freedom. I experience freedom. I remember some of the where I talk about a Buddhist conference where all the senior Buddhist nuns talking about the benefit of being nun. They say, oh, then now I don't have to worry about what I wear, what I, how I look in the hair. I never have to go and spend time in front of a mirror. I don't have to waste any of that time. So they feel so liberated. They never have to worry about how they appear or what the clothes they should or shouldn't wear. They just don on the same robe every day, as long as they have a couple of pairs of robes to change. But otherwise, they don't have to wear different colors to match different things. They don't have to wear jewelries or makeups or nothing, because they're not attached to any of those things. So therefore, they are liberated, and they don't. Also, those who are very renunciate, they don't have attachment to possessions, or titles, or properties. Of course, in the modern days, people have to keep a bare minimum necessities, maybe shelter, food, clothes, and medicine. So you have to have a reasonable kind of small things that you need, but otherwise you're not into that. Because your craving is so much reduced, so is your desire, so is your need. Because of that, you haven't got hardly anything to make frustrated or angry about things. So because of that, you are always blissful. You're always grinning, even things you do not get. You just feel, you said, I knew this was going to happen anyway. I never get anything anyway. Even I get it, I just lose it. So therefore, you do not get upset or disappointed by not getting things, because because in the end, all the gettings are more burdensome than cause of liberation. So because of that, your attachment is not there. So you can see the impermanence. You can see the quality of Dharma is you're not doing as much as samsara as you before. You don't have same degree of attachment, And also you don't do any blaming that other people did it to you. It's interdependent origination. And you have played just as much role as you think they did to you. And so, therefore, there are many, many other things that you couldn't even see what the causes are. There's so many multitude of causes. Because of that, you do not spend dwelling, dealing, or blaming anything, or criticizing anybody. Because you really know that criticizing someone is completely deluded. Those who don't have refuge in the triple gem criticize other people. Those who have refuge, they have refuge from criticizing others. Those who criticize others, they're picking on the flaws of others as they don't have their own. Those who have refuge, they're always thinking of seeing their faults, their selfishness, their lack of discipline, their judgment. They notice this, and but that's the one's relief. They no longer do that to others. They become a little bit overwhelmed with their subjective awareness of their own frailty and how flawed we are. Sometimes we can get a little bit depressed, but it's a good depression, We actually have to meditate on suffering of samsaras, and we thought we didn't have suffering before. So now we realize how much suffering we have been doing all this, and now we are learning not to do them. While we are seeing the unexhausted deposit of our bad habits, then you realize, oh, I didn't know I had this deep a deposit. So the more you shovel them out, the more you find the subtle deposits of clinging and attachment and so on. So therefore, a little bit of the more better practitioner become. Sometimes you become a little bit gloomy, as how deluded you have been this long. You wouldn't believe. So there is a bit of quality of Dharma is that you become slightly sad, and sadness comes from the renunciation of seeing no pleasure in samsara whatsoever. And so now you realize how true the teaching is, that there is no pleasure that lasts. From the summit of universe down to the lower self, there isn't anything. Because of that, your share of suffering that towards which you are a little bit sad and depressed is a tip of the iceberg. Because of that, you have strong renunciation and being able to meditate on the law of impermanence. And not only meditate on the law of impermanence, embrace the impermanence. Every change is a great relief. Nothing will stay the same. No matter how big a problem you have, it will get either becoming bigger and bigger to solve all your problems, or it will become smaller and smaller and disappear. Where was the problem? Because if you're not doing them, they don't become again. If we are doing the problem, then of course we know the problem is imagination. You can see the physics of the problem because you are looking with the Dharma glass. If you're wearing the speck of Dharma teachings and it says look, you have to look and listen, you can see how much you are doing, how much it doesn't really exist from its own side. Because you know that it doesn't exist from its own side, and even if it does temporarily, it is impermanent. And then you don't worry about it. You hardly have any time to worry, because before you can worry, it will have changed anyway. And because the change is momentary, change is constant. It's not a change is seasonal or periodical. Change is constant. Change is constant, and we just have to see that. So in this way, by merely reflecting on the shortcomings of samsara, preciousness of human rebirth, and law of impermanence of death, and the law of karma. Now, if you think about and understand karma, how much the quality of Dharma start to enable you to understand the law of cause and effect. You know that everything you experience are result of past causes, and everything you have to try and persevere now is the causes for future results. Because of that, the present experiences are a result of causes one has somewhere created unconsciously or consciously. But even if you do not remember exactly what you did, or to whom or how and so on, it's pretty evident that what these are a result of, that are similar to things that one may have done this to others. And so you do not have the same kind of venom thinking, why did you do that to me? But rather things, oh, I must have done this to somebody else before, and now this is happening to me. So when you understand law of karma, you don't go and point finger to at something as a cause of that, but what our past may have created, the present situation that we are at. If we are skillful to author our cause right now intentionally, it will determine the outcome and result in the future. So we become very cognizant of the. We can foresee the result of things we are going to create, either physically or verbally, mentally. Because of that, we are much more conscious and careful and able to exercise much more caution and restraint, because we know that whatever we do will have consequences, And because of that, it's not so much how people provoke you that justifies your reaction, but your reaction will have consequences to yourself rather than the consequences will be bared by the others. No. Others will have experienced the result of their actions, but they will never ripen on us in the long run. Only what we do to it, think about it, will ripen to us. So therefore, we are able to distinguish the action of others doesn't really bother you as much, but your thought about them does. Your thought about what other people's actions do has consequences to your choice of response or lack of one. So because of that, you become much more cognizant of the causality of your thought and intent and response to others, but you do not say, oh, he made me to do this, I don't care type of thing, because we know that nobody can make us to do anything if we have the understanding of law of causality. They may suggest us, they may condition us, they may try to influence us, but we have total freedom from not falling prey to the whim of other people's action. So because of that, you know the separability of one's karma action and actions of others. While our action may be dependent on what other people do, but then our action to that is also dependent on our intention. So it's rather our intention is more dependent than of the outcome than what may have been provoked or instigated by something else. So you know the remote cause, immediate cause, the difference between the two. The other person's doing or provoking is a remote cause of it. But even if the person presses the remote controller, but what if your TV is not connected with the power at all? That will be good. Your TV is not at all connected to power, even though the person is pressing the remote control, and then it doesn't work because you know where to stop. You see. See, now you have this incredible power over your mind, rather than falling prey to what other people instigate and provoke. You are not easily influenceable negatively by others as you previously may have been, because you're not as offendable and vulnerable as before. So you can see that is the quality of Dharma, of understanding law of karma. Now, if all of this, then we go to take refuge. We generate bodhicitta. Now, if you talk about refuge, means safe. Refuge means safety. And safety doesn't mean that you don't meet problems, but safety means you meet problems, but you use them to purify your karma. It says that in the one verse, quality of Dharma, Takpen Docha Trave Gyu means because Dharma is pure, it is that which empowers you to cause you to purify your neurosis, desire. So because we have refuge, we do not fall victim to the other people's afflictions and obscurations, but we are able to purify our own desire, our own craving and resentment. Why? That is the refuge. So when we do the refuge, is that reciting the refuge prayer may be more like a formality, but actual refuge should be something that we're always practicing. Hopefully, when you're really present, you're not doing samsara. You're doing opposite of samsara. You are abstaining samsaric childish reaction. Why? You have refuge. So when we do the sadhana, after you do the four common foundations, you straight away do refuge. But actual refuge we should be trying to live in that refuge all the time. And because we become guarded by our mindfulness of the Dharma. That's why the Dharma is protector, because we are able to stay in dharmic awareness, dharmic kind of concentration, and then we are very basically covered all the time, because our mind is resorting to Dharma. We are taking refuge in Dharma because we are realizing how true the Dharma is. So the refuge that we do in the sadhana at the beginning is not just a sadhana in the sadhana, that you actually always staying very present. You will not resort to the samsara and the cause of it. You will probably more resort to the cessation of samsara and the path leading to that. So that is the actual refuge. That's the actual refuge. Is not just when you recite the refuge prayer. So the reciting refuge prayer usually is merely lip service. But the actual refuge is being aware of how to stay safe, how to safe from the fangs of your craving and desire and hate and ignorance and ill will and negativities. So that's refuge. Refuge is actually do ourselves guarding from our own bad habits and negative emotions. And when you do that, how precious. Some things happen in you that you don't have the same sting of way to attack other people when they attack you. Why? Because you have refuge. Therefore, you do not bite at them or attack at them, but you instead practice tolerance, because you take refuge in tolerance. You don't take refuge in tit for tat. You don't take refuge in aggression with aggression. You actually are able to have the maturity to take refuge in tolerance and compassion. See, that's the refuge. That's the actual refuge, is that, Then we talk about bodhicitta. The bodhicitta is motivationally why I'm doing this, for whom. When we think about me, now, this life, that's not bodhicitta. We have to think, I'm doing this for others. I'm doing this for my future lives and for my mind stream. When you're starting to do that, your altruistic motivation makes you completely capable of coping any difficulties that temporarily exist. Why? Because you're not worried about the temporal difficulties. Temporal difficulties are like lightning. They come, they disappear. So they will not remain very long. So you know exactly how smart you are in terms of developing the right intention. Because of that, your bodhicitta isn't just a few lines of prayer you say at the beginning of your practice. Bodhicitta is altruistic intention and attitude, right attitude in all your life situation. Then you can see you always have bodhicitta. Your intention to think long-term, altruistic for others, not just for the body today, this life, but for the future. When you're able to think like that, then the bodhicitta that we do at the beginning of the sadhana is always a thing you do in everyday life. It's not just in the sadhana. What we have in sadhana is just a reminder. And then you might meditate on the four immeasurables, which four immeasurables. For instance, immeasurable loving, when you do meditate on loving kindness, qualitative dharma is very precious if you know how to meditate on loving kindness, because loving kindness unsit the ill will. Lots of people are doing ill will and they're doing samsara. But when you do loving kindness stops the ill will and stops physically doing violent, aggressive things, verbally saying condescending, negative, critical, verbal abuse, criticizing others. One doesn't do that verbally. And and emotionally you don't brood them. So therefore the preciousness, how precious the gem of Dharma is. Dharma actually guards yourself from developing anger and high blood pressure and all other kind of evil consequences from brooding anger. Loving kindness instead makes the object of someone who harmed us as a cause of our growth rather than the cause of our aversion. So our objects of anger become our objects of kindness and loving kindness when you have the loving kindness. So loving kindness is a very, very precious practice because it prevents us from brooding anger, resentment. And how do you know? You're physically less aggressive, verbally you're not sharp-tongued, and mentally you're not brooding. Why? You're busy doing loving kindness. When you're doing loving kindness towards other sentient beings, you don't dwell on what he did or didn't do that is good. You just still see him as objects of your love and compassion. Because of the kindness that we have in our mind, we now see the qualities of precious Dharma. Dharma is not a text or an object. Dharma is a mind that changes ill will to goodwill, miserliness to stinginess, and judgment to lack of judgment, and sadness to joy, and laziness to diligence. This is the Dharma. So preciousness of Dharma is when we are doing the Dharma, when we are heeding to the Dharma. And then, say, even if you're in front of a temple, in front of a great teacher giving many teachings, sitting there day after day, those are outward form of delivering Dharma teachings, listening. But deep down is how much of that hearing of the Dharma, listening of the Dharma that you did, that is very precious teaching Dharma. You're listening to the precious teaching of Dharma. But if you're thinking about like that subsequently about the Dharma, then you can see the teaching on loving kindness that you heard has enabled you to not to do ill will. You realize, I should not hold this grudge or resentment and anger to him or to myself or to others about that issue. This is not living. This is cause of my sleeplessness and stress and high blood pressure and all these things. So therefore, I won't do this. So when you have this incredible gift of realization of Dharma, because you can read texts, you can recite mantras, but actually you are not gaining any new realizations. So try to make sure that preciousness of Dharma is making us to realize, making us to come to grips. Maybe it's very bitter at the beginning. It's a very bitter, but slowly the bitter pill becomes sweeter and sweeter. the medicines are very bitter usually, but the medicine effect of the medicine is really curing illness. Like that, one is able to see how much misery that we do by ill will, resentment, anger. And you can see that so clearly. Therefore, loving kindness meditation, how to practice loving kindness to meditation, such as to our mother, and then recognize her, who she is, and call them my mother, my dear mother, my kind mother. And when you're starting to do that, it completely shifts the appearance of your mother that you thought previously have some kind of difficulties. Now those color changes, and your mother's worthiness of your kindness and generosity become so much so that your resentment, your anger, all of those does not have any place to hang on to. You actually have much more valid cause to develop loving kindness to her, and likewise to your father or anyone else. So therefore, the preciousness of the Dharma, the qualities of preciousness of Dharma is not because we got so many books and so many Buddhas, and they also look beautiful, by the way. Nice to have all these Buddhas and books. It's even better if you realize some of the meanings and then doing them inside, almost like you're stringing jewelries of your recent accomplishment. You no longer have laziness, ill will, resentment, and so on. And you're actually seeing them. You no longer are doing ill will. You no longer are self-loathing. You no longer are overly critical to yourself. You actually have realized precious humility. You're much more gentle with yourself. Because how can you be gentle to anyone unless you have become gentler towards yourself? Oh, the quality of Dharma is so precious because it taught me how to practice kindness to myself. I've been so critical. I've been sabotaging myself. I've been really, really self-loathing myself. This is not the way to live. I'm so glad that Dharma has enabled me to see the Buddha nature in me, and my own small good qualities in me, and my skills in me. And then you start to have this incredible friendship that you develop towards yourself. You can call that self-loving kindness. In Buddhism, in teaching, don't say self-loving kindness, but we can try that. There's nothing wrong in trying something different. Whether self-loving kindness works or not. Try not to have loving kindness to others when you don't have to yourself. Then some people are angry with themselves. You don't have loving kindness to your mother, for instance. So first try to make friend with ourselves, because we are the first person. We are first person to practice loving kindness to and by. If we need to practice loving kindness to others, we have to have some kind of experience of doing the beneficial loving kindness. Maybe if you see somebody's loving kindness to you is so good, maybe that's a good to emulate. If someone loving kindness to you is so good that they don't judge you, they don't criticize you, they unconditionally support you, give you and encourage you, so inspire you, and they're not threatening you, and they're not sort of blaming you. When they do that, you feel completely supported by them, isn't it? Exactly. When we don't do the same thing to ourselves, you will realize how the quality of Dharma is so good, it actually makes ourselves to be gentler with ourselves. And then you also will see others as much more worthy of our gentleness, loving kindness. There's no room for criticism, no room for judgment, no room for putting them down, no room for judging their flaws and so on. So then, because you have loving kindness, the flaw of theirs become even more cause for you to work on, so that they drop the flaws by a skillful dispensation of your effort towards them. So this incredibly, you can see the quality of Dharma, of loving kindness, because you no longer have the same degree of ill will as you previously may have. A lot of people have, incredible, over small issue, about that, you're still angry about that, you still really don't talk to him about that. It looks so miserable, so childish, so stubborn. And so you say, no, let's not do it. This is ridiculous, Let's stop that samsara. Let's stop that drama. And then you can see the quality of Dharma. Then you are really heeding to the Dharma. Then you really say, well done, well done. Otherwise we read the Heart Sutra, well done, well done. We're just doing so many well done, but doing nothing. Saying well done, but we in the meantime not doing anything to change. So even you read Heart Sutra hundreds of times, well done, well done. You're just reading someone's verbatim, but not actually doing anything well done to the extent yourself, almost like thumbs up to yourself, that you no longer do the form as real, feeling as a real, perception as real, emotion as real. You don't think that he is the cause of your feeling, or he's the one that is the cause of your perception. You don't do that, because perception is emptiness. Perception is impermanent. Perception is deluded. Perception is unsatisfactory. So because of that, we get attached to our perception. So in this way, when you practice loving kindness, previous objects of ill will now becomes the objects of loving kindness. So that's the quality of Dharma. Precious quality of Dharma is that enables you to remove the ill will and embrace them with kindness and goodwill. When you have that experience, that is what they call immeasurable loving kindness. The immeasurable doesn't mean that you have that kind of loving kindness to every sentient being whose number is immeasurable. Some people think that immeasurable loving kindness means that you have loving kindness to all sentient beings who are immeasurable. But wait a minute, what kind of loving kindness you have that is immeasurably good? It doesn't mean you have enough drop of water for everybody, but everybody's thirst is not quenched. So doesn't mean that. It means that your loving kindness is such that it incredibly had gotten rid of your ill will. You no longer see them as an object of harm or ill will or malice anymore. You no longer see them. You see them as a past life's mother or your own children or something like that, and therefore you harbor no ill will, you speak no bad words, you think no bad thoughts. You actually have this unconditioned loving kind, never mind whatever they say and do to you. That is the immeasurable loving kindness. If you have that with one person, you can ditto that with every sentient being when situation requires you to do that. That is the immeasurability of loving kindness. That is the quality of the preciousness of Dharma. Then, if you only do the quality of Dharma very well, then your appreciation to the quality of Buddha increases by the day. And that's why whether it's a clay image of the Buddha or gilded gold image of Buddha or Gandharva arts, there is rocks or remnants of rocks or whatever it is, your devotion towards Buddha is unparalleled, unequal with any devotion you have towards things. To other people and things, our devotion to them is mostly attachment, or due to some filial duty, or due to some kind of guardianship that we have, or because we are paid to look after them, or whatever. This is not really something. Of course, it's good to do your job because you're paid to do that, but we have loving kindness to all sentient beings. Because of that, everything else becomes a pretty secondary, really. When we have loving kindness, the harder the sentient being is to please or to work with, more they become cause of your loving kindness. And that is the immeasurable loving kindness. So when you actually know how the qualities of quality of the preciousness Dharma, you are realizing how true and effective and beneficial loving kindness is, tolerance is, forgiveness is. And then you go through due to loving kindness, you can practice all the 6 paramitas. When we say the refuge prayer by the virtue of giving and the like, yes, then whenever you give something, when you do something for others, or when you give something with the time or whatever it is that you're giving them, another chance, you're giving them another help, whatever you're doing, you do not become expecting them to treat you anything better than before. Why? You have the preciousness of quality Dharma, of not attached to what you gave and who you gave, so on. You instead do not actually need to check what people are doing with it or to you, because you know that merit of what good we do or others do will never go astray and never go wasted. You don't have to remember everything on your notebook and then you get rewarded. No, you don't even have to keep a list of all the good you did. You don't have to even doubt whether somebody paid you back or somebody thanked you or not. Because you just don't. You have this incredible knowledge of the Dharma that whatever good we do will never go wasted. And so therefore you don't get attached with the thing you did, to whom you did, and where you did. Those are secondary. These things never need to be remembered. Because of that, you can see the incredible the generosity. True practice generosity give you more happiness to give than to want back. The giving itself brings you so much joy that never came even from keeping so many things. The very things you did that you didn't get a lot of joy from keeping, you gave away, you have more happiness, more satisfaction. So now you realize, dana is so precious. The teaching on Buddha Dharma's teaching about practicing dana is cause of healing, cause of hope for the other, cause of making the other person find hope and gratitude from us. So when you practice dana, for instance, generosity, there's incredible realization, the merit of giving. And then naturally you practice, you discard the miserliness. You don't do mindfulness anymore because mindfulness is suffering and it's cause of suffering. You don't do anymore as a practitioner. You did something for other. You're not always expecting them to do something in return. You don't even think about it. It just doesn't really matter. As long as somebody does good, it's good. It doesn't matter whose turn it is to shout a lunch, that sort of thing. Because you're always talking about who shout lunch, and it's my turn, it's your turn. That sort of thing. If you can shout lunch for all every day, that would be best. you never have to be remembered by other people when they should do that, because you have the incredible quality of Dharma is that you have much joy from giving than needing to receive. If your joy comes from receiving, oh, you are not experiencing the practice of you practicing the preciousness of Dharma. If you think receiving is happiness, it's because other people who are generous. Therefore, you are enjoying the relatively short-term benefit. But wait until you practice giving, then the joy and satisfaction and contentment that comes from that is incredible. This is like, and then how do you know that the preciousness of Dharma is true about generosity good? You have incredible satisfaction from giving, but not from hoarding and keeping. That previously they became cause of fear, anxiety, worry about everything. Now you don't have, because you don't do the hoarding, you don't do the keeping. You actually do the giving. Same goes with the discipline. If you are observing certain discipline, like say adopting virtue and dropping non-virtue physically, verbally, mentally, that are already existing ones, and then developing non-existing virtues and maintaining those that exist before. So you have a discipline to do that, whether it's a formal practice, formal doing things for people, with people, or whatever you do. You are not sort of doing minimalist, you're doing still as a maximum level whatever you can to benefit others, because even though you might not be able to do some things same as physically because you are not able to, but you can still do mentally and emotionally on a different scale. So because of that, your discipline is your practice of discipline, that you have things to do every day, and you don't feel empty and dull and boring because you have a lot to do. And that doing doesn't mean heavy lifting physically, but it could be doing your own practice. And because your discipline is good, the sadhana practice you did was really beautiful. You were so inspired in that sadhana, unlike other times. Why? You put the discipline, the true teaching, how precious the Dharma's teaching is, to put the thought and feelings and knowledge and understanding all in the sadhana. Then you realize, wow, when I do the Dharma properly, how precious it is. And then you will realize that otherwise people do one sadhana and they're looking for another deity, another lineage, another tradition, another group to practice, all that sorts of things. They don't realize the volume of the practices doesn't need to be increased, but quality of those few we do really is that accentuates the quality of the practice of Dharma. Then the practice that you're doing is, it's the same sadhana you acquired 10 years ago, but it still has got everything. When you truly put the quality of Dharma that from the teaching you understand. Because of that, you are not spiritually needing more different practices. The few you have, you're totally contented with them, and now you're boosting the additional quality that this practice is enabling you. So when we talk about the quality of the Dharma, we're talking about quality of how much we are realizing the Dharma is true, how much we are more aware of how Dharma is so true. When you're doing that, you can see lots of your sorrows and difficulties. Just by having this appreciation of Dharma, they are washing away your sorrows. You can see them just purged and cleansed and shifted because Dharma is medicine, and when you take the medicine, if you've been prescribed by doctor to medicine, after 4 or 5 days, you can see the sign of the pacification. The symptoms are gone, and your severity of illness disappear like that. Because you've been practicing Dharma, your severity of poor me and samsara is not there. Your level of anger and miserliness and lack of discipline, all of these are thing of the past. Now you have new degree regime of discipline, and because of that, you can see how sacred and precious Dharma is. Because as a result of you practicing it, your own sensibility and maturation increases. Because of that, the quality of Dharma is that your sorrows are reduced. Because it's pure, it is the cause to drop your desire and craving and attachment. Means by merit of this, it will stop your taking steps towards the 3 lower realms. So you don't suffer like an animal or hungry ghost, always wanting, always like an animal, always fearful, anxiety, always like hell is full of hatred. You don't suffer those things. Why? Because you are practicing the holy qualities of Dharma. Because when you're practicing Dharma, it doesn't mean you have to be sitting hours and hours practicing Dharma. That doesn't necessarily have to do it. But just thinking the right attitudes. Thinking the right attitudes, and then you can see how it is pacifying your anger and attachment and self-judgment and fear and anxiety and all of those. You are not doing them anymore because that is the Dharma. Dharma is not doing suffering and its causes. A person might be doing lots of Dharma outwardly, but deep down one is not taking any of the realization of Dharma. So scripture Dharma is the volume of it, and the realization Dharma is the quality of it. Do you like the quality of Dharma or quantity of Dharma? Lots of people are doing quantity of the. Oh, I did this, I do this every Saturday, I do this every week, but quality is missing. So when we are practicing the real quality of Dharma, then your practice of Dharma is improving your mental attitudes, your behavior, your attitudes, your perception, your thoughts, your understanding of Dharma. As a result of that, you are feeling blessed. You are feeling purified, because it purifies. Because they say, how do you know that you have got the quality of Dharma happening in you? It's purifying you. It's cleansing you. It's washing you. It's making you feel much more hygienic. It makes you feel a lot smarter. You don't say, I've got a smartphone. You can say, I've got a smart mind, People always try to get a smartphone, new smartphone. Every year they want to buy an iPad, iPhone this, iPhone that. Try to get the Dharma. Try to get the best Dharma. Sacredness of Dharma. When you realize Dharma, how the true the Dharma is, then you don't have to update anything externally, physically. You just do every day, try to download the Dharma app, Download the Dharma app. Every day download the latest Dharma app, But now the Dharma app number 2, this is 2,568 Dharma app, okay? Because we celebrated Vesak only a few weeks ago. So 2,568 app, Dharma app. It's amazing, really. I mean, it has remained very good. And next year you realize, oh, I had this 20 years and this is incredible, 21st year. So you can celebrate yourself, the Dharma in your life. And why? Because you're realizing how true the Dharma is. How? Because your thought about someone is much kinder and more less judgmental and more forgiving and more patient than you previous year did, Last year, 2,567, you still have some things not resolved with that person. This year, your quality of Dharma has bettered, so much bettered that you no longer have this heavy burden on your shoulder towards others or yourself. Why? Because you are actually doing the Dharma. There's a story of the some Kadamba monks in Tibet, and he was practicing. Maybe he was reciting mantra, or he's circumambulating, or he was doing various things. Then the one monk comes, what are you doing? He says, I'm doing this. He says, yeah, I wish you were really practicing Dharma instead of doing that thing. He says, I thought I was practicing Dharma. I was turning the prayer wheels, and I was walking around, I was doing prostration, I'm doing reciting mantra, I'm doing this. He keeps saying, why don't you want to practice Dharma instead of doing that? So Dharma is this, we ourselves become the cognizer of what we should be shifting our attitudes and thought. When you start doing that, then sure, outer form of doing prostration, doing mantra recitation, doing study still is necessary, but still, when you're not doing those formal things, where's your attitude? Where's your altruism? Where's your renunciation? Where's your acceptance? Where's your acceptance of law impermanence? Those things has to be really the qualitative functionality of how the Dharma is precious. Even how the quality of Buddha we talk about is fairly academic, really. The more you increase the quality of the Dharma, realize the realization of Dharma, that much your devotion and gratitude towards the Buddha increase by the day. Your devotion to the Buddha has many, many miles to increase, many, many levels to increase. And that is dependent on how much we realize how true the Dharma is. How true it is. The patience is the virtue, highest virtue, but most hardest one. So you really think, I really need to learn practice patience. That zero tolerance is another way to go. I really need to practice patience with him or her, or about that, about this. If I don't, I'm missing the true Dharma. Arrogance, judgment, retaliation, angst, and up and arm. These are not practicing Dharma at all. These are just hate for hate and abuse for abuse and zero tolerance. This is not practicing Dharma. Real practice of Dharma is that being able to tolerate those temporarily by foreseeing the benefit in the long run for oneself and others and both. And so in the meantime, you don't mind suffering the problem, because it's not others doing that is you're suffering. It's your previous impatience makes this one very hard to be patient with. If you're patient before, you wouldn't find this one very difficult. Simple as that. And so when you understand that, you realize, I can increase my tolerance to the extent of having no aversion to suffering. Yeah, that is why the virtue of patience is. So then you can see any teaching that says how we should practice patience, this is how to practice patience, this is how you accept temporal difficulties, you should see there's a karma you created in the past, and that's ripening now, exhausting. Then you realize how true it is. The more you do that, less you have aversion, and less the suffering increase, but they are slowly disappearing because of practicing Dharma. It has pacified. Because Dharma is medicine. Dharma is becoming peaceful. Dharma is reducing desire, hatred, and arrogance, and judgment, and all of that. So when you can see them slowly getting smaller and smaller, then you will be awed. You'll be really, wow, I never knew that I do not no longer think about it or him like that. It is possible. Look, I don't have any venom towards the person or toward that issue. I instead have incredible, formidable awareness to forgive them, develop kindness towards them. When you have that, that's the realization of how the quality of incredible, inconceivable quality of Dharma. If there was something physically, the surgically can remove your suffering, you wouldn't mind having someone cut your gut and open and look, find what to remove. Now you found the teachings of tolerance. Teachings of virtue of tolerance actually is much more effective removal of the tumor of ill will than the tumor of the tumor. So when you know how to remove ill will and does not allow to increase it, that is your practice Dharma. That is the practice of Dharma. And so with the altruistic motivation, the bodhicitta motivation, then if one practices patience, then if one practices tolerance, then if one practices diligence, all of the 6 paramitas become qualitatively much better than the quantity of how many you did this many times, that many times. The number is not so important, even though number can encourage a person or can discourage the beginners. I don't know, either way, it is never a win-win situation. Sometimes if you have the quality, the quality is you don't mind how many times you have to do, because the quality is so good, you don't mind doing it, because each time you do, it boosts the quality on top of what you did from the former one. So it's not monotonous repeating the same again as you blundered the few steps before. It's not like that. So what appears to be we doing many times one after another is we are not growing anything. We are not experiencing any growth. A person who is experiencing growth does not think he's doing many things repeatedly one after another. He is building qualities that lacked in the former ones by doing this one. And he's developing kind of the depth and firmness and confidence that he lacked in the previous one. So what he's doing is not repetitive, monotonous activities. Because of that, the practitioner have to know when they recite mantra or when you're repeating a prayer a few times, it's not the same prayer we are repeating a few times. It is bettering our attitudes and attention that may have lacked in the previous one. And that otherwise, why do we become better after we do many times? If we are not eliminating the antithesis of practice, then why are we doing repeat? So more you do, the more it boosts the quality of it. So that's why the repetitive nature of the sum of the practice you do in Vajrayana, Sadhana, mantra recitation you do, one should always try to see what additional value and quality can I see this happening. I'm not doing the same thing again. I'm doing this that looks like what we did, but I didn't quite get to eradicate this one by doing that. Now I'm doing that again. It's just like having a test drive, or you didn't pass last time, you try to do this time so that you can actually pass. Exactly, yes. So when Vajrayana doing 400,000 test drives, very good. 400,000 test drives. So it's not so that, you're going to the same place again and again, but you are actually trying to reach some more grounds that didn't get covered by all the other previous things. So that's why when you have the understanding of the quality of the precious of Dharma, then your quantity does not bore you, quantity does not distract you or dull you or find it very boresome, burdensome. But you actually see how sharp your mental faculty is as far as developing the quality is. So when we talk about the qualities of the precious gem of Dharma, we are talking about the realization of Dharma. Whether you study epistemology, whether you study Buddhist logic, whether you study Abhidharma, Vinaya, Madhyamika, all these things, you have to see what are all of these things are adding to your realization in the faith and confidence and how true the Dharma is. The more your knowledge increases, more humility it builds you. If there is a sign of increase of arrogance and righteousness, even though your conceptual knowledge of Dharma and much better than before, there is no sign of any of the affliction or such as arrogance is still there, then of course person hasn't really got refuge in Dharma. They are just practicing academic materialism. They're just learning, but but actually is not teaching us anything. But the more we learn, the less arrogance we have, more humility we have, and so we don't judge others. We actually see there's no place for me to judge anybody. I got just as many flaws, more flaws than they have. So therefore you don't go there, but instead you actually mind your own thought and behaviors, and therefore even that you don't do too harsh on yourself to the extent of driving you nuts because you become so critical to yourself. Now you are less critical of yourself, but a little bit more encouraging, but still see the room for improvement that you can make. So that's why when we talk about the quality of the sacredness of precious Dharma, not so much new topics you understand, but the kind of knack of the teachings. Like even though you have heard the bodhicitta many times, even though you heard of a precious human rebirth many times, but sometimes in your practice there's incredible joy of preciousness human rebirth. Incredible, see how difficult it is to many friends to bring the Dharma, introduce to the Dharma, because for them their faith and even interest in Dharma is so difficult to introduce. But yet we must have some reserve of merit, that we have the natural inclination to see and know that we have refuge in the Dharma. And we rejoice that, so much so that how much better we are in so far as not doing ill will and resentment and guilt and doubt and those things. We don't do nearly as much as before. You wouldn't believe that you have changed this much. Then you feel incredible surge of joy that you are able to have this kind of cause of happiness that comes from contentment, that comes from gratitude, that comes from lack of ill will, lack of some kind of desire. You no longer have those desires. You don't mind if you have it, but you don't mind if you don't have it. You know, if you can't get the right dinner you order, doesn't matter, you eat whatever's there. So you wouldn't think your whole evening is destroyed by not getting the order. You don't think like that. You're completely gone over those things to the extent of how much simpler your mind is. It no longer is so complicated, so irrational, so easy to get upset, or so easy to get happy. Your mind is no longer tipsy-turvy like before. One moment so happy, another moment you hate. It's not like that. Your mind is now have some kind of equilibrium, very stable, very matured. And know that however difficult things are, it too will pass, don't you worry. You can tell yourself, and then you grin to yourself, yeah, that's true, yes. Even you get really excited about something fantastic happening, you don't think it's so excitable. How long would the excitement last, When I travel around the country in the last few months, what quite a lot of people say, Rinpoche, are you disappointed that you have to sell Virupa? I say, what the hell are you talking about? I said, no, we never saw Virupa. Virupa is always a good center. Virupa is another center that our fellow Buddhists are minding in. We don't just have the same role or responsibility to look after it, and they will look after it, and we can still go and visit them as a center, and they enable us to acquire a new place. Yeah, I said, I really don't have any chance. That's actually, I mean it, I don't really have it. And we probably would have a little bit think, oh, it is shame, it has gone to a trucking company. Now all this half a dozen truck parks there, and then half a dozen big guys come and drink there every night. We might think, wow, what a shame, why couldn't we give us a Buddhist center? Maybe we will have a little bit of that. But still, I wouldn't really have think about it anymore. What was it before? When we got it, it was just laundry place or something. So back to square one, maybe it can go back to another laundry place. So we are not really attached to the place because I just don't have, because I'm so blessed by having to forcibly renounce my home. All the yaks, all the cows, all the sheep, all the horses, we could not have anymore. We just have to learn to let go. We have to learn to live without any of the thing called mind, and live in a completely new country, new language, new everything. Have to start everything from nothing. Again, because of that, and as well as, of course, the small understanding of renunciation of everything. We like say, I'm saying that I really do not have any attachment to, for instance, ownership of anything, because nothing is owned by us anyway, including this body we have to leave behind. So we don't own anything. But with different groups of people will manage and run it, and hopefully the good legacy of the people will do that. And like Buddha himself passed away, and he never worried about what will happen. So when you really have the understanding of how true the Dharma is, there definitely is a less sorrow-making machine, such as desire, hatred, and ignorance, and all the other secondary afflictions that the people do so easily. When you become less doer of the affliction, and less doer of those affliction-swayed actions, or thoughts, or words, you can see how much purifying your mind is doing, and how much purified the mind is experiencing the lack of those sorrows and causes of sorrow. Then you really have peace. Then you really have peace, because you are no longer creating the causes of suffering and afflictions. And when you are very much present in your mind in cognizing this, there is no time the Dharma is not practiced. Your Dharma practice doesn't mean just to do Dharma. You could be doing fairly ordinary things, fairly mundane things, but still you could be mentally constituted properly according to the right view, right attitudes, and so on. Because of that, you are the quality of Dharma is that it is proofing your mind from suffering. Dharma is suffering proof. Dharma is preventing yourself from getting sick. Now it's no longer a medicine to cure the sickness. It now stops the cause of sicknesses. Because it stops the causes of sicknesses, you don't get sick very often. You might get physically old, you might get physical illnesses, but mind is not mourning and groaning about me and my health and what will happen to my this, my that. You no longer will suffer when you have refuge in the Dharma. It's of course how much it suffers is not much how you lost, how much you attach to you. And Shakyamuni Buddha have to deliberately give up everything as a young prince so that he can practice. Otherwise, he was not even free to practice, let alone gain enlightenment. So he knew what should be kept, what should not be kept. So if it wasn't the preciousness of the Dharma that he practiced, he would have not chosen to give up everything and live as a mendicant life and achieve enlightenment. It would have not been possible. So it is the quality of the refuge in the Dharma that one becomes enlightened. And then one can advocate the teaching for the others to become a member of the Sangha, and then create the legacy and community that actually carries and keeps the Dharma to the next generation. So because of that, you can see the preciousness of Dharma enables us to appreciate our fellow brothers and sisters in the Dharma. And even those who are not in Dharma, we don't look at them with contempt. We don't look at them as someone else. We still see them as all our unrecognized parents of the past. Because of that, our refuge do not judge or take sides or become biased against any sentient being. And we actually have some kind of a duty of compassion and kindness towards all sentient beings, particularly at Mahayana. So you can think about for instance, the quality of Mahayana teachings, which emphasize the need to be inclusive of others. Whatever you do, don't do it for yourself, but do it for the sake of others. When you hear this quality, then it's not so much you try to reach there ahead of everyone to claim nirvana for yourself. That's never the case. What's the point of you reaching ahead of others while everybody languishing in samsara? So it's almost like a cause of shame to put all of that effort so that you can be the first one to reach the summit, and then put your little flag saying, look, I got ahead of every one of you, type of thing. One does not see any merit in that kind of competitiveness, ego-driven thing, but rather one should be like the shepherd who stays with the flock and protect them from any kind of wild beast that is attacking them. So Bodhisattva's kind of model of prioritizing benefit to others, how long you need to stay with everyone, including many lifetimes in samsara, is always a good cause for you to be useful in living in the world, rather than thinking of oneself reaching ahead and everyone else. So therefore, you can see the scale of the Dharma, of the concept of greater scope. I wouldn't need to say the Mahayana, because greater scope, whoever practicing with great scope of including others is the great vehicle. Whether their practice is called Mahayana or not, I don't think it matters. Even some people think they are Mahayanas, but if they don't have this kind of attitude, this is not Mahayana. They may wear a hat or robe, or color of robe looks like Mahayana, but their attitude is a Miniyana. 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 We don't use the Hinayana anymore. We have grown out of that. We call Miniyana. People are practicing me, just for me. When people practice Dharma just for me, even they have Vajrayana empowerment, even they have heard Bodhicitta, but they're only doing for the mini-me, Mini-me so that we can become mini-muni. Mini-muni. We don't want to become Mahamuni, do we? We want to become a mini-muni. Mini-muni means a very, very tiny sage, just for oneself. So quite a lot of people, even in thinking they are Mahayanas, are still just doing for themselves. Then you don't see the quality of it very much. But when your heart is very, very big for the sake of all sentient beings, even though conceptually you have never heard of Mahayana, but you really know it is for everyone, not just for me, and then you continue to do that, there is that kind of growth which we call the Buddha nature. Now the Buddha nature has been nurtured to grow and unfold with which we call realization of how true it is to adopt that model of practice than just for me. So therefore, when a person who has refuge in the triple gem and who is contemplating on the qualities of three gems, one needs to think of the quality of gem of Dharma that we consciously do and change and move and shift. Then your mind has been purified. You will have much more peace and contentment and lack of ill will and lack of forgetfulness, all of that. Because of that, you can see you're always adequately in a state that never was same before, ever since you acquired these Mahayana, this great vehicle to fit quite a few friends and still come some vacant seat if people want to hop in, type of thing.
Your heart is so big, you never say, no, there's only two of us here. Please come more. you know. So you have this incredible inclusive way of opening your arms and for the sake of all sentient beings. So that's why the quality of Dharma, in this way, when you do a sadhana for turning of the mind to take refuge, generate bodhicitta, and throughout the whole session, your recitation mantra, your concentration, your visualization, your diligence, your meticulous way of doing the sadhana or mudras or practice, whatever you do, it has to be continuously carried with this bodhicitta motivation. If you have this continuous bodhicitta motivation and the right view, then the very format of the structure of the sadhana is just a way to guide us, like a training wheel for the little kid who cannot ride bicycle yet, but you buy a little tricycle and make them feel they can ride, but they still cannot bicycle it. They still need a tricycle. So later on, once they know how to ride the tricycle, you slowly remove the third cycle and make them ride the bicycle. So like that, right now we are all on a training wheel, training wheel, and then sometimes even without doing the formal practices, your mind is always within the shade, a cool shade of the pavilion of the Dharma's knowledge and compassion and right view and right thought. All of those facets are readily available at your disposal. And so that's why it's very important to always reflect on the qualities of the gem of the Dharma that is so precious, so priceless, that is taught and realized by the Buddha, that has touched and shifted and healed and benefited countless sentient beings before, and we are so astounded that we are lucky enough to meet and find Dharma and refuge in it. And you always see that you're no longer seeking any more problem-solving solutions or helper or rescuer or anyone than the Dharma. The refuge of Dharma surpasses anything you own, anyone you know, any places you can go to. Still there's nothing that matches the immeasurable qualities of your realization, appreciation or realization Dharma teaches you. When you have that, that would be the one way to see the quality of precious gem of Dharma. And then even some very difficult things were going to upset you, but it doesn't. It just completely enable you to most catastrophic situation. You have turned this around, turned into a great blessings. Because you have the true refuge that comes from your skill to turn biggest obstacles to greatest accomplishment, and all faults become cause of potential qualities, and because of that, your knowledge and comprehension of Dharma is so versatile, so deep, and so liberatingly useful that your daily reading and listening to teaching and doing the sadhanas, crystallizing them, it's brightening them, illuminating them every day. So basically you are relishing the Dharma inconceivably each day, and you have every reason to dedicate it so well that may the little Dharma that I have studied or learned or received or understand, may I be able to practice these. May these two become a cause for me to meet and get to know anyone. If I get to know them, maybe that might be the real cause that I have reason to know and meet these people. So therefore, you have some kind of a incredible duty to implement your Dharma in everyday life situations. So these are the main intention of this topic, is so that we actually stay in the refuge always, in one's awareness of how a light Dharma is. It always shows you what thought to choose, what thought to not to do, what feelings you should not do, You don't develop any feelings of desire, attachment towards something. If there is, it's sooner or later it will be just another drama, another suffering. So because of that, you have this great sense of aversion, not positive kind of renunciation from that, and thus you are able to renounce the renunciation, practice renunciation, the cause of suffering. It's not the object is suffering; it's the cause of the suffering is our attachment, craving to them, our judgment to them. And so it's not that we have to renounce samsara so much. We have renounced the cause of samsara ourselves, which is quite an incredible difference. Then it's not so much aversion to samsara and sentient beings therein, but compassion to sentient beings who have no clue how to free themselves from this quagmire. And therefore, it's not renunciation of samsara, it's a renunciation of cause of samsara that one knows. And hence, the remedy to help sentient beings is right view and bodhicitta. No doubt, therefore, renunciation, bodhicitta, and the right view. These are the three principles of the path, and therefore three most distinctive qualities of the sacredness of Dharma. And through study, listening and contemplating, and then meditating, we will increase our comprehension, realization. You can see how much room there is for you to improve and increase and realize even more. So that is the importance of quality of precious qualities of the Dharma, that we should always listen to, good in the beginning, contemplate on, good in the middle, and do meditation on, good in the end. And when you have that, they are influencing our choice of thoughts, words, perceptions, feelings, and you wouldn't believe how quickly your progress is within your reach. And this will delight sentient beings. This will benefit sentient beings, and we do not have this same degree of suffering. And even if we have some suffering, we don't have aversion to suffering. We embrace the sentient beings with problem, with suffering, with unconditional compassion, loving kindness. And therefore, other sentient beings, their problem does not impinge on us, but they become cause of our having refuge in the Dharma. Okay, thank you, everyone. We will conclude here. And thank you for being there and being with everyone here on Zoom, there on YouTube, there on Facebook, whatever you are watching now or later throughout the week or throughout the who knows how many years YouTube will last. The people will listen to these teachings. So thank you very much, people, everyone. Let's do the dedication of the merits and rejoice the Mahasiddha Virupa's enlightenment, who's also incredible Sangha. You have next two sessions we'll be talking about the quality of the Sangha, the incredible luminaries, the incredible people that they have given their life to the Dharma and has become our luminaries, our inspiration, they are the photos, they are the statues that we put up there, so that they are all heroes, they are all our Sangha, they are all our soldiers of peace, they're all the amazing Buddha lineages and traditions that exist in the whole world. Is a great cause to us to rejoice their valid contribution. So with this, let's do the dedication merits. From the ocean of Mahayana
sa Choedak Mahayana je courage je ne vois Asama Tabada de la follow it Zamba Aja de Gao de Med excellent body Jeda Teba Veda no Yeda where has been born freely without generation. Thank you, everyone.